Stacy D. I am JP Craddock. I am here with Miss V. We
Hey.
love having Miss V. And we got the professor here today, and we have no idea what the professor might say. So let's
Get
just
ready.
let's just prepare ourselves for whatever the professor might say. It is Women's History Month, and we are continuing with discussing the value and the role that women have played in our history. So, Women's History Month. We discussed it last week. We are continuing this week. So, that's what is coming up on the show. You can catch us here on KUAW Radio, also on Periscope, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. All right, Miss V,
Yes.
what do we have for women's history today? We're doing it as Women's Month,
Yes.
period. Because we need to cover more bases than just history.
Yes.
You know. So, but what you got, Miss V? What are we
Okay.
going to talk about?
For my check-in, I'm going to talk about young people doing some great things, young women and some gentlemen. So there's some students that we work with, and this one young lady, her name is Heaven Hart. Basically, there was a National Association of Parliamentarians Jeopardy competition. This
Wow.
young lady from Kansas City, Missouri, coming from humble beginnings, blah, blah, blah. She rocked it out. So we had a
Really?
national competition that she put together. She did it all. She's a marketing major, and she's about to graduate.
Wow.
The reason that's important is because we're training these young people up, but we're trying to put them on large platforms so that the world can see them and expose our urban young people to this energy, this pressure, this expectations of doing great stuff. And she did so amazing. She did so amazing.
That's wonderful. You said she is. What is her major?
She's a marketing major.
She's a marketing major, and when you say major, she's because people are thinking college, but this is a high school.
No, she's a college student.
Oh, this is a college student. Okay. This
Sorry.
isn't one of your other mentees because those high schools allow the kids to focus on a target area also, don't they?
Sometimes.
Okay. Okay. What school does she go to?
Sometimes. So, Drew University. And I'm glad you asked that question because I'll get into why the competition was such a big deal and her doing it. But she went to Southeast High School.
Okay.
And that's where she went to school. She graduated, and then she went to Drew University in Springfield, Missouri. And
Okay.
so she did well academically, all that type of stuff. So she's finishing up her year, but she's been with the Smart Career Club for about 10 years off and on, when she was like in middle school, all the way up through now. She's in college, so it's exciting. So we try to keep them involved in projects, to help.
Wow.
So the reason I wanted to talk about this particular, the parliamentary procedure piece, we've probably been on lots of boards and commissions and stuff like that. And this parliamentary procedure competition is where the kids have to compete and show they know how to run meetings and be on boards and vote and know motions. You know what I mean? And and know motions and stuff like that.
Right. Professor, we need you to stay. You sitting in Stacy's seat, and apparently the ADHD jumped off on you.
No,
You have a
no,
thought?
not really.
You have a thought? Go ahead.
I just feel that if Stacy comes in, I must remove myself.
You worried about what?
I'm
you
just
worried about
holding the
what's
seat.
gonna happen
Yeah, that's right.
if the D comes in here?
Yeah.
Don't be scared
And I
of the
cannot
D right
feel-
now,
And I'm
Professor.
telling you, I can't feel her shoes on this show because I don't talk on
There's
crazy
a
stuff.
there is a time to be scared of the D, but this ain't it.
Oh,
My goodness, he's funny.
Okay, so parliamentarian procedures.
What's her procedure?
And which does prepare them, especially if she, if she pledges a sorority or anything like that, the meetings are conducted in alignment with parliamentarian procedures. So
And they
that's
have
good.
to understand it a lot.
Mhm.
So in this,
It gets complicated also.
I know.
Yes.
That's Robert's rules. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it does.
It's pretty
Yeah.
exciting.
Well, because you're an attorney.
So here's what happened.
That's why it's exciting for you.
It's exciting because So having this young lady, you know, she's making history. She did that part, but we had two young black males from high school who they competed in the competition. I just told them, just get on and observe. You don't even have to get in it because it was national, but I needed to expose them to it, right? So they studied the materials. They got in there. They didn't do well, but afterwards they were like, we ain't never seen nothing like this, Miss V. What was this? It was so exciting. They said, but it was kind of cool. It was kind of cool. And so I was telling them that the more that we can help them to be on committees and boards and commissions and learn to vote, they can use it for their resumes, you know, scholarships, showing leadership. And so it was just a really exciting thing. And having got to be the one from here, right in Kansas City, that got to put on this national project for the National Association of Parliamentarians. So now she's got that on her resume.
That's great.
It's exciting.
It actually, that is.
About it. Sorry.
Is there a recording of this on
There
YouTube?
sure is. Not on YouTube, but the
Okay.
recording, the NAP has it, and so I'm going to be sending it to you because I want you to see it.
Yeah, I'd like to see it, and it might help me to freshen up on some of the intricate details of parliamentary procedures.
Yes.
Because
And
it
I
gets
can
deep.
also help you in another way. Let me show you. Let me tell you why.
Okay.
I'm glad you asked. But you
Tell
want to be
me.
sharper.
Tell me, Miss Bean. Look.
There is a state. There's a state organization called Missouri Association of Parliamentarians, and there's
Wow.
a plaza unit, right? And so I'm the chair over the youth of the state of Missouri. So that's the reason I'm doing this stuff, right?
Really?
And it's really exciting. And so we have monthly meetings, and we can teach you all this crazy stuff.
Wow.
But it's a way.
I didn't even know it goes that deep.
It goes that deep.
I know it goes deep in the meetings.
It does.
Oh, it goes
But we
deep
gotta
in the
prepare
meetings.
us to do. And the reason I like it is because once I got just aware of it, I started seeing it as a way to teach our young people about civil discourse and order, conflict resolution
Keeping
without being in
order.
conflict. Right.
Right.
That's why I do it.
Right.
And so the more I can expose them, that's why those young men, they jumped in there and they weren't scared to compete with those people who knew it, and they were the only black students in the
That's
competition.
great. Oh, that's really good.
It was pretty exciting.
Okay, come on,
Anyway-
black folks.
anyway,
Show
so
up now, black
it was
folks.
great, but I'll tell you more about that another time, and but we do a lot of that. So we're hoping to get more and more minority students in, like, whether it's FLA, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, other kids are in these organizations, so they're practicing that. But we're not, so we're not ready
Right.
in the fraternity meetings, sorority meetings, or
Right.
committees and stuff like that. So,
Right.
amen.
Okay.
Hey, Stacy D. She said, good title.
Professor, you have a check-in?
Yes, since we're talking about Women's History Month,
Yes.
I had Mr. Walker, looking to see if he can find this 16-year-old young black lady. It said will become the youngest teacher in the school. So he's
What?
Yes, I saw it on. She's
At 16?
She's 16. I think she's 16 years old, Mr. Walker. If you find it, put the age in.
Get out of here.
Oh, amazing.
A 16-year-old
That's what they
teacher,
That's what they
a child genius, has made it through college and will be teaching her peers. Well, they're not her peers.
Yeah. And I don't know if
She's like, no,
my
they're
God.
not
I don't know
my
if she-
peers.
And I don't know. That's why I have Miss Walker look up that, see if I get that information. I can't remember if she's already finished her, degree for teaching. Because sometimes you can still be going to school and kind of like interning too.
Even
But-
as
but
a
he-
student
yeah.
teacher at 16, that's wonderful. At the same time, I can see her running into some obstacles. I can see those waters getting a little turbulent, because if she's 16 and she's teaching same age students, young people can sometimes struggle to accept direction from same age peers. And if she's teaching at 16, she's going to have some students that are older than her.
Well, I'm pretty
That's
sure.
going to get interesting.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure they wouldn't just throw her out there by herself too. There's other things because my niece, just for an example, my sister said one time she went to visit her school and she was in a class with her peers, same age, but she was pretty bright, so she was helping the teacher out, showing the kids how to do the problems on the board, and she was going around helping the class, the kids.
That's good.
And so sometimes, and to me, sometimes it depends on the teacher. Some younger kids could be, because it's an older person, they might not, want to communicate as much or talk about certain things. But then when you find somebody that you think has something in common with you and understand,
Yeah.
you might feel more comfortable working with that person.
Like, oh, yeah.
Not being
That's
intimidated.
on the positive
not,
side
Not
of
being
it.
intimidated by it. That's what
Yeah.
I want
There-
to say.
yeah.
Sometimes kids can get intimidated by it. Or teachers can make them feel, and somebody could make them feel intimidated.
Yeah, I'm sure there will be some students, hopefully most of the students will be receptive.
Open to.
Yeah, will be receptive to it.
You found it, Mr. Walker?
Yeah, the young lady was on the Jennifer Hudson show. So she graduated from HBCU. She's from Oklahoma. And she will be the youngest. I can't get the rest of it because she's on TikTok, and I don't have TikTok.
So what's her name?
Shania Mohammed.
Okay.
16.
Yeah, 16
Full-fledged teacher, not student
Oh,
teacher.
full-fledged.
Well, it doesn't say.
Yeah.
Like I said, I got to pull it up on something else because
Yeah.
I can't see everything on
I
TikTok.
got a little piece here, if I can share it. It's about the
Oh,
same
well,
young
yes.
lady. It says by the age of 15, she graduated from the University of Oklahoma, and by 16, she became the youngest teacher in the United States.
There you go.
And that was on Good Morning America, so she's making the circuit.
Oh, yeah.
You found some good stuff.
So I'm gonna have to check that out.
You
since,
did,
she,
Professor.
since she's from Oklahoma.
She
Did you
might
know
be
that's
kin to
what-
you.
That's right. Just about
Oh,
everybody.
you from Oklahoma?
My parents.
He
But,
kin to everybody in
But what
Oklahoma.
happened is.
Everybody is his cousin. Uh-huh.
But what happened is.
If they doing something good, they his cousin.
Actually, what's her last name is Stevenson, Molly Stevenson.
Okay.
She's and she was the first black woman to be elected into the Cowboy Hall of Fame. She's from Oklahoma. She
Wow.
lives, I think she lives in
Okay.
Texas now. And her dad was Ben Stevenson, and I think he was the first black football player to be indicted into the college.
Okay. Okay. Wow.
You from
Okay.
Oklahoma?
I'm sorry,
You from Oklahoma?
all our
He's-
family. a lot
and
of
and
We all
everybody
excited. That's
and
why-
everybody there is his cousin.
Well, now this is they say if you we don't care who you're gonna marry, what race, if they have a history of Oklahoma, they're gonna be that's your cousin.
That's your cousin.
That's your cousin. So they said,
Well, we're all at least 50th cousins anyway.
We sure are. Here's the exciting about the story as well. I just wanted to. She really credits everything to her sisters and her brothers. And she said, speaking to Good Morning America, Muhammad reflected on her childhood at home, crediting part of her success to her older siblings. She says, I remember seeing my older sibling study for the ACT in 8th grade, she shared. My sister, she really started it all. She was 16 when she graduated high school with a 4.0 GPA. My brother graduated from the ¡1 private school in Oklahoma, and they really set the example for her. And she's just smiling all big on here,
Wow.
y'all, just so you'll see her picture, Mr. JP.
Bless her heart.
But again, it's that family, there was
support.
support and the examples.
And examples.
Wow, graduated college at 15.
And some siblings competition kind of.
Yes, yes.
They if they found somebody that you know.
It was the expectation.
Yeah, the expectation.
And she's like, well, I want to beat them.
Yeah.
They did it. I want to. So it's
That's
pretty
amazing.
cool.
And you know
stuff.
she's going to end up going back to school and picking herself up a master's and a
But-
doctorate.
and
Absolutely.
you said it was an HB.
Oklahoma?
Yeah.
No,
Oh,
Mr. Walker.
Mr.
He
Walker,
found
you
the
said that?
HBCU
Yeah,
part.
she said it said HBCU alumnus.
Oh, okay,
Didn't
Amen.
say what school. But
okay.
Yay.
That's great. That's
maybe she
great.
went to Langston.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Langston.
Yeah, that's a good check-in. That Also, though, that's good for mental health and illness in the news. Just covering that a 16-year-old is going to be teaching. Um, it's going to be interesting. I do think there will be some challenges being a young teacher, but hopefully they will have a mentor in
Oh
place
yeah,
to assist her, and it also depends on the school.
yeah.
You know, where she's teaching has a lot to do with what that experience ends up being like. I see a lot of teachers in therapy who are fresh out of school, and depending upon the school, sometimes they end up in my office within 3 months of the school year starting, because it can get rough for some of the teachers, but teachers in other areas and other districts, it's a smooth transition. It just depends.
Is the roughness that you see, is it the children or is it the colleagues, sort of, or a mix? Or
It's the kids. hmm Sometimes young teachers, we're talking like 22-year-olds, and to get student loans dismissed, they can teach in the urban core, but sometimes they are not prepared for the urban core, and it becomes a bit of a rough transition. And so when they come in for therapy, they are coming in because they look really young, and they are struggling with maintaining order in the classroom, because I don't have a degree in education, but it doesn't seem that the field of education provides a lot of curriculum on maintaining the structure of the
Classroom
classroom.
management.
Yeah. And so they need a little bit more of that. And so they are entering classrooms ill prepared and end up scared. Really, they end up scared to go to work every day. And so I, assist them with putting, a level of structure in the classroom, effective and appropriate behavior modification, communication skill development, how to communicate with kids that are in the urban core. I mean, there's just cultural differences between the teacher and the students. And so when they are coming across as being really afraid, it makes the situation worse.
Because the students eat that up.
They smell that fear.
I'm sorry.
You're not gonna be
Sorry,
standing up
they
in
really
front
do.
of the classroom with your knees knocking and you sweating bullets and crying. You don't let them see you sweat. And so it turns into a situation, but they end up doing so much better.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's just
Because
they
you're
just
kind of
need support.
mentoring them. You're kind of being that piece.
Right.
Earlier, like you wish they would do a little bit more of that.
Right. So imagining a 16-year-old in that position is interesting, because when you look young, kids can. When I became a therapist 25 years ago, I looked really young, and I still had hair back then. And the kids wasn't so much a problem, but all of the parents and the grandparents were older than me, because I was a therapist in my 20s. And I remember this one grandma. She, it was the first appointment, and her immediate response when she looked at me, was, "You the therapist? You look like a little old boy." It was in a meeting with about 15, 20 people up in there. Yeah, it was something that was funny. We ended up having a wonderful relationship, though. She quickly learned that regardless of my age, I knew what the hell I was doing. And so me and that granny got along well. She blowing my phone up asking, okay, what do I do? But that immediate reaction, and even when I graduated with my bachelor's degree, I was working at a children's treatment center here in the city, and half the kids was bigger than me. And so when you're young, I looked like one of them. And so it resulted in some interesting interactions because I look like them. And so that's what I'm in thinking about her being a teacher at 16 and thinking back to, I wasn't even 16. I was just looking young, working in a treatment center and looking young as a therapist in my 20s. And you have to, she's going to have that initial contact with her class, and then that period of time, that little phase of time where it's very crucial in how she engages with them to establish that level of respect and structure. And initially they're going to be challenging her, and that's what she's going to need to be prepared for. And that's what I found even as a therapist, working with parents and with grandparents who were older than me. There was a little bit of challenging because they're like, you are too young to be giving anybody therapy. Who you trying to help up in here?
Your kids.
Yeah, right. Your kids.
The pressure you got to
So,
speak up.
so Gerald, I know you looking at it from, your career. You're a therapist, but in the classroom, I'm telling you that when we get younger people coming in, some of those kids, they respond better to the younger teachers than they do older. Matter of fact, I heard somebody talking about who we got to vote for presidents because the age, and they don't even want to vote. Now, there was, in this incident with the bridge, the barge ran into the bridge in Baltimore. Well, there was this young black mayor, and so someone asked him, they said, well, how long do you think it's going to repair the bridge? He looked at them like, you're talking about a bridge. I'm talking about we need to save these people's lives. I'm not worried about that material thing. Right now, the point, the main thing is we need to save lives. I'm not worried about that bridge. There were a lot of comments saying, we need young people like him. Right. I didn't know there was a mayor that young, and you should have seen all the positive responses, because then it depends on how you look at things. If you have something in common, and what do you call it, repertoire? What do you call it?
Rapport.
With the kids.
The rapport that you
Rapport,
build.
Yeah. Because I'm older, but still at my school,
older.
Those kids, they come tell me, they say the kids don't snitch. Anything happen, they tell me, because my administrator said, man, they respond to you and talk to you. But I told him, I said, if a kid tells you something and you do not take action, or they don't see you doing anything, they're not going to ask you again. If you set up, and I still think that our leaders, if you hear these kids complaining about something, don't do something. They're going to get your attention, and they're getting our attention right now.
They're definitely getting attention.
They're getting your attention. Remember with the Black Lives Matter thing? I think they said we're going to do it the civil rights way. But normally we handle this in another fashion, and that doesn't work. Well, we going back to what we wanted to do in the first place.
To do that. So I'm agreeing with a lot of what you're saying.
Yeah.
Not everything.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I understand.
But
Me either, Miss B.
Yeah.
But I'm not looking.
But
at it
I'm
from
going
a
to let the professor say what he got to
I know.
say.
I know. But the only reason I'm doing that is to say, because we're going to move it back to Women's History Month for a moment. Yeah. But no, based on what you're saying, because I think that with this young lady, what she's done, the student that you're talking about, I think she will have some challenges.
Oh, yeah,
but
have some
I think it's going to be important for the women, a lot of the women in the school, to support her and not in any way like the grandma did, kind of undermine a little bit. Oh, are you young? But it'll be because they're going to be a part of that support that's going to help everybody else respect her. You know, so I think
And
that's going to be critical.
Yeah.
And
And
she's
I-
going to need for them to be supportive as
right.
opposed to them being a little dismissive themselves because of her age.
Absolutely.
Because here's the thing when it comes to working with kids, yes, college is going to provide you with the academic foundation that you need in order to carry out your job duties as a teacher or or as an instructor. But then rapport, which is what you mentioned, Professor, the actual rapport building, joining and engaging is what we refer to it also as in mental health. That's very important and very crucial because you can show up in a classroom and know everything you need to know in order for you to teach those students. But how you go about it can determine success or failure. When I have seen teachers struggle immensely, it wasn't because they were incompetent as teachers. It was because of all of the other surrounding factors, their engagement with the students, you know, how they communicated with them, how they set structure, boundaries, those types of things. And students, they can make a teacher crack under some pressure.
Yeah.
I have
And
a
it also-
question.
yeah.
Go ahead.
And it also depends on if you redirecting how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because these kids, I don't care what age, they know about respecting. They worried about how you treat them, how you respect them.
Yes.
That's an important thing to them about
Young-
respect.
Yes, young people respond well to adults that they view as being real. That's the if you're working with urban core youth, one, you have to be very real. They don't respect anything that is not real, but you also have to be able to be confident enough and to put the level of structure in place and respect, as you were saying, Professor, because they do well and respect adults who show them respect. The problem that I have found with teachers that I see in therapy, and I see all levels of educators in therapy. I've seen everything from teachers, principals, assistant superintendents. I've seen all of those people in therapy as clients. And sometimes, a lot of times, the mistake they make is they go in almost wanting to befriend their students to build rapport, and then they try to put structure in place. Well, their friends don't put structure in place. If you become one of their friends, their homies ain't putting structure in place. And so it's a mistake for them to do that, because what I explain to them is, see, now you have pigeonholed yourself into this little box of being their friend, but you are responsible for providing this education. And now they're not willing to listen to you because you are their homegirl. So who are you to tell them to sit down, to put their phone up, to stop talking to Junebug on the left and Cletus on the right? Like, who are you to do that? And so what I explain to them is it's more important to put the structure in place, and then you can do relationship building. But even in doing relationship building, you don't want to cross the line to being a friend. You can have fun with young people without coming across as if you are on their level and you are their friend. But that is a very common mistake that new teachers make, is I'm going to go in here and we going to be friends.
Right.
And then I'm
It's
going
like
to
that
teach
parenting thing. No, you're the parent. You're not their friend.
Right.
And just to add a little more to the young lady, as you said, she has help out there. She has 3 degrees, 2 associates, and a bachelor and she's been through teaching college at Thurgood Marshall Foundation.
Oh, right.
Oh, ain't that something?
And her school that she teaches at right now, the director is her mentor at a Christian school. Sharita Smith is the director of the Young Achievers Christian Academy, where Shania teaches. It says, it's a privilege and honor to be this young lady's mentor, helping and guiding her teaching journey. We are a few days away from 1 week, and let me just say she is doing an amazing job with her third graders. And this was in
Oh,
August.
this is wonderful.
This is August of 2023, so she's about to finish her first year now.
Oh yeah, this is wonderful. One, she's at the Christian Academy.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's
But the
okay,
kids
let's
got a
praise the
little more
Lord.
sense.
Yeah,
Amen.
yeah. So the student body that she's working with might be a little bit more polished, and they're third graders.
I ain't gonna say that.
Okay,
I'm not gonna-
and
I ain't gonna say-
and so she's 16, but they're third graders. They're 8.
Right.
This is wonderful. I thought from how the professor presented, they put her in the high school in the hood
I did
with
not-
juniors and seniors.
I did not tell you that.
You didn't tell us
No,
that.
you didn't, but you,
You
were
didn't
saying the
tell-
peer to
That's
peer,
why-
and she probably can do well with her own
Professor.
age and all that. So we
I did
just
mention
didn't
that to
know.
you. I did mention that.
We
to
know.
You.
So
I said-
You
you
led
led us to
No,
believe
no,
it.
I didn't say she. You know.
Professor, you led us to believe that this 16-year-old was in the hood.
That's why I had. That's why I had someone look this up.
Thank God,
And you had
Mr.
it on
Walker
your
looked
phone
up
too,
this
right?
information.
She had it on her phone too. So you look.
Oh,
No, I did
we
not
can't
say
be
that.
misleading.
No, I did
all
not
of
mislead
our
you. You
listeners.
jumped on in there and started
He
driving.
said
the
we
car.
run with it.
What's
Oh my
that
goodness.
Tracy Chapman song? Driving in my car. You know?
Oh my
my
gosh!
Lord.
So
Yes.
your analogies and everything led us to
That's why I had you look.
8-year-olds
No,
are
but you
not
already
her
knew the
same
story.
age.
I just know they're not gonna put her in a classroom like that. Come on.
Well,
Okay.
that's what we said, and you said, but it'd be okay.
No, I
You
didn't.
And they might respect her
Right,
better.
he
I'm
said,
thinking
because she's the
they
peer.
gonna run her up out of there.
years old,
That's
I mean,
what I was
they're not
thinking.
gonna put her in a classroom.
But that's what we was trying to
And most
say,
of the time, they
Professor.
put the more, they're just not gonna throw some first year teacher in there. and
Yes,
do-
they
Yes,
do.
they do.
Yes, they do. I see teachers
do.
from
So I
the
have
Kansas
a
City,
question.
Missouri, and Kansas School District. Yes, they do. Okay.
Miss-
What?
Mr. Therapist.
Yeah.
Question. A real serious question. So,
Okay.
The
I'm sorry. I'm still laughing at the professor for misleading us.
You could've looked it up on
Well, no, but even though I looked it up, I couldn't read the whole thing. So, but we're glad that you, because normally we read it before we come, but because you didn't know, so you just, but you gave us something. So we happy because we talking about it.
Oh
So-
yeah, yeah, yeah.
No,
And this is still
it's
wonderful
still-
for
this is
Women's
good,
History
'cause it's a-
Month. This 16-year-old teacher, this is wonderful.
We just messing with you.
Yeah,
And,
Professor,
uh,
we messing with
there's
you
a lot
now.
of-
Suck it up,
There's a
There's
Professor.
a lot of people don't want to get in that profession.
Well,
And we're shortage of-
'cause it's
I know,
rough.
I know, but-
It's hard. So the younger well, I won't say. Here's what I know, and then I want you to please share a thought regarding the counseling side. So what I do at KU, I'm in the educational psychology. So I teach teachers, future teachers, how to basically do mentoring and classroom management and all of that. But in a part of it, I also, my advisor allows me, and as I teach, under him in my classes, I'm really teaching a lot of these non-urban future teachers about this is what your students gonna be like.
yes.
I do that a lot because
Okay. Because
and
they're
the
showing
re-
up shocked.
yeah, because they are because they're
then they
there
schedule with
and
me.
they are excited to just go in and teach. And sometimes it is because they can't get their loans paid off. And we talk about all of that because that's not fair to us. That you just kind of come to us for that reason, and then you're gonna leave us anyway. So sometimes you're kind of coming in really with okay, I'm gonna hold my breath for 2 years. I mean, you know what I mean? So
But it's
I
the
think
only
we
way to
gotta
get them to get the teachers
but-
because there's a
but
shortage.
I get it. Now
They
let's
like, you better pay off a
we
load
need
or
to
something to have
recruit
me up in there.
Some minorities to go and get them loans and then come and do your 2 years. But you see, it's just an unfair thing a little bit. But so it makes me think that because of my own experience in teaching the future teachers, that a lot of them are young white women.
They are. That's who I was basically referring to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and not even some of the white males in the classrooms. You can tell they have a little more confidence or whatever, and I think kids respond to men better anyway.
I cannot even recall having a young African American teacher coming in for therapy for this reason.
They ain't
So I was
coming.
talking
They
about,
good.
I was talking, yeah, they're obviously good. And so, yeah, you're right. And well, and there are those cultural differences because the young black teachers, there's not as much of a cultural gap. And so they're more relatable to the students and they know a little bit more about how to communicate and manage them, as opposed to if you have a young white female teacher from way out in western Kansas. She from a little town that only had 3 black people in it.
Yeah.
Okay. And then she ends up in the Kansas City, Missouri school district. That's a really big cultural gap.
Yeah.
And yes, they end up coming in. But like I said, they end up doing well in therapy and doing so much better at managing their students. Because one thing I will say about our youth is that our youth, they will respond well and do well to a good approach.
That's right.
Okay. It's a mistake to think that, well, young black teenagers are just, they racist and they going to treat any white teacher like, that is not the case. That is not the
I agree.
case. You know, and even
Do
in
you
doing,
agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
okay. Because even in doing psychoeducational groups, when I worked at the mental health center, psychoeducational groups are a combination of psychotherapy and education. And so even with court-ordered offenders who are coming in to learn anger management, I would always, and I think the administrators did this on purpose, they would pair me with a white female therapist. And so when we would first start out, the kids would, of course, show me a little bit more respect because I look like them. But my co-therapist, because she was really highly competent and she was comfortable. She's working in a community mental health center in Wyandotte County. And so what the students quickly learned is that black folks were not new to her.
Right.
And she's like, no, I got a caseload full of black folks. And so she was able to immediately kind of set that tone and they responded well to it. And bonded and connected with her as well. The only thing that she would sometimes struggle with is when the N-word would come out. And we did have to have a conversation about that because when the N-word comes out, of course, I'm immediately addressing that, okay, and setting the tone for what we not gonna have up in my group. But I would talk to her and say, listen, you are redirecting them on each and every other thing that they present. If they start talking about guns up in here, you immediately check them. If they start talking about they was high last night, you immediately checking them. If you are uncomfortable with them using the N-word, I want you to address it. You can't address it from the perspective I'm addressing it from. You can address it from your perspective. And she ended up doing a really good job of doing that, of just saying, you know, that she was uncomfortable with them using a word that she does not agree with any person using. And it would open up that.
Because they respect her, they became to respect her.
And
they'd
they
be like,
listen.
okay.
Yeah, and they pulled that mess right on together. And so, you know, young white females can provide instruction to young urban core, you know, black students, but it does require, you know, some knowledge, cultural knowledge, which is what you are teaching them, and knowledge on how to have structure in place, how to be respectful but still firm. You're not trying to be their friend. You're trying to get that respect in place. Then you can bond and have fun with them while still maintaining the structure.
So, yeah, Joe, and I know you had addressed about how kids respond, whether it's male or female. Well, I'm not going from what other people have studied, what I experienced. They had to get used to me because for the most part, from my experience, and some of my, I didn't always work for the school district. So they're not used to a male redirecting them, or either they're more used to their moms, because some of these kids don't grow up with a male figure, so they had to kind of get used to me.
Do you feel like they had a negative response? Because my experience has been that they respond better
Me too.
But
to
I'm
a
not-
black male.
I'm not talking about. I'm talking about 16, 17,
Yes.
18,
No, me
because
too.
they are men and they looking at you. Well, I'm a man too, and blah. You know, that kind
They
of.
were resistant, Professor? Did they-
They wasn't. I don't know if they. Just looked like it appeared to me that they didn't feel very comfortable. But maybe it's because some of these kids already knew that they didn't grow up with a male figure, and some male figures were in their life probably were more negative than they were positive. So that's what I'm talking
Gonna
about.
be another flyby. I mean, it's,
No,
there,
Now,
there,
I just
there-
think
there's
that could have
something-
been it.
I just
Yeah.
think
But
you're taking
usually I
advice.
have not really.
Usually-
Yeah, no, just taking advice or me redirecting them. I think they kind of had to get used to it, because you got to remember, if someone's used to a female telling them all the time, you
But
know,
that's
and
who they act
redirecting
the
them,
fool with in the
Nah,
schools.
nah.
The most is the females, unless it's an old black woman teacher. Now, those teachers tend to
I'm
do
not talking
fairly
about.
well.
I'm not talking about teachers. I'm saying when I was in charge, you know, over supervising these young men, I could tell that, you know, they got used to me, you know, but I don't know if it looked like I was because I'm a man, I'm trying to boss them
Can I ask you
around or
one
something.
question?
Yeah,
Reggie, were you in the classroom?
I'm not. No,
Okay,
court system.
gotcha. That's
Oh, the court system.
That's the difference. Yeah.
That is the
I
difference.
said,
Yeah,
I said it wasn't in the classroom.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
but
what I'm saying.
I was making sure, because I think
Yeah.
that's what we were speaking. No, I
That's why I'm
get
saying
it.
it wasn't
Because
They
I think that
resistant
male
to-
teachers get black
Yeah.
male teachers, I think, get a better response
in the classroom
because these young black males have had that absence of a male figure in their lives, oftentimes, not all the time. So let's not present it as if no black men are raising their
Yeah,
kids,
black
because that's
men,
not the case.
some.
But for those who have not had a lot of positive male role models in their lives, they tend to respond. That's the reason why the schools are desperately trying to recruit black male teachers to teach in the urban core, because they get a little bit of a better response. Okay. Just like the older black female teachers get a little bit of that kind of the grandmotherly big mama response if she's firm and structured. And oftentimes they mentor some of these younger white female teachers who are struggling to get a handle on their classroom. But I hear what you're saying, Professor. You're saying that some of them are resistant because they're like, I'm not accustomed to a man telling me to do anything, and I'm not going to listen to the professor right now. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, and but you got to remember, there's kids that respond positively, but there's some kids that are rebellious, and if they're rebellious, they've already got a kind of attitude, you know, where they.
Well, they're going to act a fool, period.
Yeah, but I'm
And
saying
I think
they still
it's
had to get
important
kind of
to
used
share
it.
the distinction, though, because we're speaking about the classroom
Yeah.
and then different. Because I volunteered in the court system for over 15 years, directly, probably doing. You probably worked there, but I was just volunteering. But it was hard, male or female, because the kids they're in there, and they are a little more resistant. Just
Not
to-
trusting,
To authority,
not
period.
trusting, not
authority.
trusting.
Period. So we're saying two
Yeah.
different.
Yeah, but I said, remember,
settings.
I said that it wasn't in the classroom.
I know. I just want to
Yeah,
say
yeah,
it
yeah.
again for the
Okay,
audience
yeah.
because I want to
Oh,
make
yeah,
sure
yeah,
that we
yeah.
know we
Yeah.
on that part now.
But
I
I've
just
been in
wanna
the schoolroom.
make sure we
I've
say
been.
Were you able to get some structure in place,
Oh, yeah.
Professor?
Yeah, because
You was able to handle them kids.
I did a pretty good job.
Handle them, Professor.
You know, I was trying to give them some options. Mm-hmm. You know, just give them some options. you
Help
know.
them to mature and
Appropriate options.
yes.
Yeah, you give them options,
Yeah.
just so long as every option you give them
Oh, yeah.
is something that you are okay with them doing.
And then I tell them what the consequence. You get have some
There
consequences.
you go. See,
too.
now we talking appropriate behavior modification in event. There you go. That's right.
Absolutely.
Okay, Miss V.
Yes.
Let's, because there was something else you wanted us to cover today, right? Do we have enough time to
And we can cover it real quick.
Okay, let's talk about that also.
Okay, so speaking about women, young people in the classroom or in the court system, there's just different places. Almost all these kids somewhere they had women in their lives that were trying to help them, and sometimes men were there too, dads or grandpas and all that. And the reason I want to talk about that a little bit is, I think it's important. There was a thing I was watching and that I saw and I shared about grandparents against gun violence and grandparents wanting gun reform. And what they were speaking about is basically that the systems failed them, and they talked about that a lot. But what I really saw was, as they talked about the different failings in the systems, and multiple failings in the systems, that they had to keep dealing with their grandchild and not having money, and someone else letting them down as they're just trying to handle their grandkids and keep it together. And so I kept thinking as I'm watching the hearing, it was on Jackson County, now every Monday at 10:30, that Jackson County legislator, every Monday now at 10:30 since the shooting down at the Chiefs celebration, they have this session on this Jackson County. So I was watching that, but on there, these grandparents came on, and they're talking about all the struggles that they're going through and stop, gun violence, gun reform. But I kept just thinking, man, they going through a lot. Who is helping them with their mental health? Because you can see the crying and the fear, all of it, but they still got to get up every morning and get them to daycare, get them here, and try to feed them. They can't stop. They can't stop. And who is supporting those women who are trying to make the future better for these kids? And that's what I wanted to talk about, that stress of those women who are trying to make it happen, those grandmothers.
I see a lot of those grandmothers in therapy. In fact, I see grandmothers. I have some great grandmothers. I even have a great grandmother. I have one grandmother who she brought her grandkids in to see me years and years ago. And now her grandkids, one of her grandkids, she's bringing in their kids, they're teenagers. Okay. So there's like a 10, 15 year gap in between me seeing her. And so I did family therapy with her and her grandson and granddaughter, and now I'm doing it with her and that granddaughter's children. There are a lot of grandmothers who end up having custody of their grandchildren. And when I was exclusively seeing kids that were a part of the foster care system, the reason why is because there's a hierarchy. See, when the parents lose custody of their kids, the very next person in line, let's say if they live with just the mother, the father is the next person in line. If the father is unavailable, it's the grandparents. So when the parents are not an option, it's the grandparents, and then it's the aunts and the uncles, and then under them it's kinship, which is the play uncle, the play auntie, the godmother, the godfather. And so because the grandparents are near the top of the pyramid, they end up with the kids the most. Now, when the family is involved in the foster care system, they do set up the therapy and pay for it.
Oh, good.
For them. And after they adopt their grandchildren, they have their adoption subsidy Medicaid card, which allows them to continue to receive therapy services, even though they're no longer in the foster care system. Now, the lady in the video that you are referencing, she is experiencing some financial difficulties because she makes too much money for some of the assistance that she needs. And she talked about experiencing multiple layers of financial difficulty. Her daughter was murdered. All of the back child support that her daughter was supposed to be getting was wiped away. Because even though the child support is for the kids, it is in the mother's name. So when the mother died, the kids can't get all that child support. Instead of them
kids died. I
reassigning
didn't
it
know
to
that.
the grandmother.
Right.
Because that's what actually should have been done is, okay, she has custody. They needed to do an administrative order to reassign that child support, because child support can be reassigned, because every time a
she
kid
was
goes into
alive,
foster
they
care,
would've-
it's
they would've done
reassigned.
that. Right.
And when kids go into foster care, the child support is reassigned. The parent then has to pay the state because their kid is in foster care. And so that is a flaw in the system that, okay, so if these kids were in foster care, y'all wouldn't have wiped away that child support. You'd have reassigned it. But because they're with me, their grandmother, I can't get it. It's gone. Thousands and thousands of dollars. That
The other
wasn't
thing
never gonna
was
pay
that
nobody.
she had to pay all that money to get guardianship where her daughter was gone. And she said, what if I didn't have the $4,000 to hire an attorney to do that? I mean, I just kept...
And that's also because she wasn't involved in the foster care system, because if she'd have been involved in the foster care system, they would have paid for that. Okay. And so there's two different worlds for families that are involved in the foster care system and those who are not. Basically, she's just a private citizen, private guardianship, private adoption. You have to pay. And my wife and I, we did a private adoption, and even though we were foster parents, our kid exited foster care for us to do the adoption, and we had to hire the attorney. We had to pay for everything. So I can relate to the position that she's in. But she also was not able to get money from crime victims assistance. There was multiple areas where she was denied.
Absolutely.
That as I was listening to it, I was like, she's being denied because she has a job and she makes some amount of money, but not enough to afford all of this.
Right.
But because the kids didn't go into foster care and then go to her, she is cut out of all of this assistance, including the therapy.
Right.
Because she can go to therapy if she has a job, but let's imagine if she goes to therapy, let's imagine if she has a $5,000 deductible. Therapy's going to cost her up to $130 an hour. She's already raising a grandchild that she's not getting any financial assistance
She's
for.
no food stamps. I mean, nothing. She's getting like...
She can't
she's
get
getting
anything.
nothing.
So she's not, if she has a deductible, she's not going to be able to afford $130 an hour for therapy. And so this is a good question you're bringing up, because what I was thinking is that the Grandmothers Against Gun Violence, really, it might be a good idea for them to start a support group. And a psychotherapy group has a therapist present and there's therapy taking place. Support group would be good enough because it's everybody who's in her position. I could refer enough grandmothers to fill a support group
Absolutely.
just from my caseload alone. And so that would be a way for them to have some emotional support. But as far as like clinical support, therapy, there's nothing really out there except them using their insurance benefits to get it. And that's what's unfortunate.
It is unfortunate.
And so I'm in the process of I'm going to start a nonprofit pro bono practice for those clients who are not below the poverty line enough to get Medicaid, but they're not making enough money to have the good insurance. Because we have a lot of people who are fully employed full time, but they're employed by employers who are paying them low wages and are shifting the financial burden of insurance to them by choosing cheap insurance plans that have high deductibles and high copays.
Right.
If you are working and making $12 an hour and your employer goes out and gets health insurance with a $5,000 deductible, you go to therapy and it's costing you as much as $130 an hour. You cannot afford $130 an hour if you are working and making $12 an hour or $20 an hour. Like, that's a lot of money, especially if you're trying to have therapy on a weekly basis. Most people cannot afford to spend $400 or $500 a month for therapy. And so that's why
I'm going to throw this in here for Women's History Month. A lot of our labor, our workforce, it is the women, it's the moms trying to do the daycare and everything. And so, not saying that men aren't working, but you have a higher percentage of women in households working now, just period, trying to carry the different weights, childcare. They need that help.
Yes, absolutely.
They need somebody to talk to. They need the help.
Yes,
they need the help.
Because the woman in the video, and I'm gonna post it to our Facebook page so that everyone can see it, but she was clearly distraught and under distress.
Yes.
She's in her 50s. She's raising a young kid. She doesn't have financial support. Her daughter was brutally murdered.
Right.
So she's grieving while trying to be strong for her grandchild that she's raising, and she's fighting for assistance.
It
was sad.
It was really, really sad. It was really, really sad. And I can only tell my daughter, I don't know if I ever shared, but my grandson was murdered, 3.5 years ago. And I know Mr. Walker knew that. And so my daughter's only son, and again, innocent victim of gun violence. And that's the reason all this caught me,
Yeah.
And again, it's, she was able to afford things, this or that, had the insurance. And so what if we didn't have that stuff? I could help some, but I was almost in tears watching all that, like, their suffering. And we, I was able, because I'm a lawyer, I was able to help fight with the court system to make sure she got the justice, and the guy went away for life. And it was everything with these failures that happened.